Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. Coming to you pretty late on a Saturday night here, November 30th, after the Dallas Mavericks won their 12th game of the season. Quarter of the NBA season is now gone. Dallas now is 12-8 after defeating the Utah Jazz. I think, what is it, 106 to 194?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing okay. I pre-apologize to the fans and sorry, haters. You were right, because I know the people that are some critical of our podcast. One of the criticisms from our haters is that we are lower energy than we used to because we are way too fucking old to still be podcasting and blogging as a side gig. You know, if this was our full-time job, we'd be fine, but this is not our full-time job. I don't know how high energy we're going to be tonight because I'm tired. We both had long holidays for sure. And that game was a mess.
Game sucked, man.
That was just a mess of a basketball game.
Let's get this out of the way. The win is good. You want to see them win, even if it requires winning ugly. But the takeaways from that game are primarily frustrating.
Yeah.
And we don't want to have to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So you wrote the recap for the game, but short story, the Mavericks score 40 points in the first quarter and then score 66 points the next three quarters. And hold off a Jazz team, which is missing one of their primary creators. Lauri Markkanen seems to be unable to play basketball against the Mavericks. And Dallas was just, they had too much raw talent to let that game slip away. And that's a good thing. But they did not play a very good basketball game outside of some individual performances, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the team concept of what happened in that game, really gross. They hit 9 threes in the first quarter, and then how many did they end up hitting the rest of the game? Six more the rest of the game, and that kind of tells you the tale. The 16-point second quarter was the real dud, but the first quarter was fun. You know, a lot of who was it? It was Quentin Grimes kind of going nuts from three. That was pretty fun. Kyrie had one of his more. He ended up having a great statistical game, but a very hilarious Luka Doncic-like line. 30 points on 11 of 25 shooting. He only got to the free throw line twice, which was pretty ridiculous. 9 assists, 7 rebounds. He did have 4 steals. He was really kind of picking on some of the Jazz ball handlers. The Mavericks jumped out to a pretty nice lead, and they let the Jazz get back in it repeatedly, but it never felt like the Jazz. I don't know. It's very similar to the Mavericks losing to the Jazz. It's like they never felt like the Mavericks were going to lose that game, and I was just delighted that they sort of put them away.
Yeah, the first quarter was funny because it was such fool's gold.
Yeah.
Obviously it was great that they made their shots. Like, you know, I don't want to take away from the fact, like, you make 9 3-pointers in a quarter, that's really good. But like process wise, I mean, not a lot of those threes were from touching the paint. A lot of them, like, there were a couple of step back threes in there, and like, you know, just kind of hot potato threes, and they just happened to make them.
Yeah,
which is cool. That's a neat party trick to be able to do that. But I saw that second quarter coming a mile away because right from opening tip, they just didn't look into it. And I don't know if it's
same as a viewer, I was not into the game.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, they've got upper respiratory infection bug going through the team right now. Najee Marshall didn't play in the second half because of that. And it looked like a team that's like kind of sick and tired, which obviously you don't want a team to look sick and tired when they just came from 2 days off. But obviously everyone went with their families for Thanksgiving. So it's not like everyone was in the gym for the last, practicing hard for the last 48 hours or whatever. So it kind of made sense, I guess, that this game wouldn't seem high energy and would be a little weird. But that's what it is. Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it and try to say that they played like a really hard, well fought game. Like they kind of farted around and played with their food and beat a team that's horrible.
Yeah.
Which is better than what happened the last time they were in Utah, where they farted around and played with their food and lost.
Yes.
So at least they won. But like if they give the same level of effort they gave tonight and the same disposition tomorrow night in Portland, they will lose that game 100% because Portland is a significantly feistier team.
I mean, they're for anyone that, and quite reasonably, I don't think anybody should be following the Trailblazers. Chauncey Billups essentially called his whole team soft about 2 weeks ago and said that none of them want to play hard. And they, since then, the team's responded in a way that they're putting up a lot more fight. So, and anyway, we'll talk about that game more tomorrow night. But trying to think what even to really go through. So like the second quarter is obviously sloppy, and the Mavericks kind of got lucky. Didn't Kyrie hit a buzzer beater, or am I making that up? Let me go check
the third and the second quarter.
End of the second quarter. Let me go. I feel like there was a really close, Kyrie hit a three to make what was a 4-point game, a 7-point game, because the Jazz had worked themselves all the way back into it. You leave the half with a little bit, it's kind of a gross taste in your mouth. But what did you tweet? You tweeted something at halftime that was essentially
they only had, because they weren't touching the paint in the first half, and the Jazz did start a big lineup tonight. They had John Collins, Lauri Markkanen, and Walker Kessler in their starting lineup, which is basically like a power forward and two centers, because Lauri is like a 7-footer and Kessler's obviously a center. So it kind of made sense that they weren't scoring a ton in the paint, because Utah is definitely they played a bigger version of their team than they normally do. But they still only had I think 14 points in the paint at halftime, which is shockingly low for this team. They average 55 a game. So to only have 14 in the first half is bad. So yeah, I tweeted at halftime, I was like, even with this big lineup, they should do more to get PJ Washington, because their guards are small.
Right.
So Keontae George and Colin Sexton are small guards. They should try to get those guys in bad positions against PJ Washington in the paint. And lo and behold, PJ Washington had 8 points in the third quarter. All 4 of his buckets were in the paint. He was 2 of 2 in the restricted area, and he was 2 of 4 in the paint outside of it. And it was a pointed effort. I think the first possession to start the third quarter was a PJ post up against Keontae George. It ended up getting blocked because Walker Kessler made the help rotation, but it was still the right idea. And eventually they kind of got a couple more buckets out of that. So
they did. PJ had one. Teams must think he wants to go middle, because I feel like they're really he's gotten numerous, I don't want to call them real easy, because they're not really easy if he is this if defenders are loading up the middle on him. But he spun baseline for some drop steps, and he got one to go a little bit later that was just real pretty to look at. Really enjoyed seeing it.
Yeah, and they didn't do that in the first half at all. They just kind of hot potato the ball around the 3-point line and shot threes, and they made them, which was good. But yeah, they kind of got back to their identity a little bit in the third quarter with PJ and posting up and scoring in the paint. And then when things got tight in the fourth quarter, they finally started doing some dribble handoff, like Daniel Gafford initiating plays from the elbow or even 3-point line. And I think he scored on a post up from that, because the handoff wasn't there. He got Kyrie an open 3 that Kyrie missed, but
good process.
Yeah, good. That was much better process. And it was, it's one of those things where it's why weren't you doing that? For most,
I just don't.
Why don't you do that more? That I don't know why you have to wait for the Jazz to cut your deficit to 5 with
they have
minutes left.
They have to be worried about film tendencies,
I guess.
That's the only explanation. It's the only explanation, because they really,
it's a long season,
and we bitch about this because we want to see them win games, but they really do go away from stuff that works a lot. I don't get it.
Yeah,
whatever.
I know. This was definitely a game though where you're Luka needs to come back.
Yes. No, because there's we mentioned the Kyrie Irving performance, once again spectacular.
Yeah.
He is being asked to do too much. And that is I worry for his for his body, more or less, his health. You You don't want to see if the Mavericks were expecting to play 100 games as a team this year. You don't like Kyrie playing, and you assume Kyrie would need to play in about 80 of those games. There's just going to be spots, and I just worry for him is all. His shot making and missing sometimes is so funny. There's just times where it's like the ball just won't go down for him on real easy looks, and then he makes something impossible. It's just like, what happened? Let's see here. Where are we at right now? We're about 11 minutes into the show here. So they finished out the game. We got another Jazz Gortman sighting. That was kind of fun. Derek Lively made his way to the locker room, which after the game, Grant Afseth says that he was walking fine. I think Lively is going to be one of these guys that we hold our breath with his entire career, just with how he plays. What are you going to do? Then the Mavericks are kind of, they're back out on the road in Portland, like you said. So it's just nice to sort of bank a win. I mean, this has been the stretch of games. We talked about this all the way through the Wolves game on Christmas Day, and really just through the rest of December, like 2024 calendar year. The Mavericks have some pretty good opportunities to stack wins, and they have to, because the second half of their season is harder. They're an NBA Finals team. Like they aren't playing. Let's just take the Los Angeles Lakers, for example. They don't play the Lakers until January. Play them January 7th. February 25th, like they play the Lakers 3 times in the second half of the year. Now you're probably, might be rolling your eyes at the Lakers, but that's just an example of a good team. They're going to play multiple times second half of the year. They play Boston twice after the new year. Like that's tough scheduling going on here. So just racking up these wins is important. Okay. Hey, Prince, you know what? Well, Prince Singh asked a question about Luka. We'll address that in the second half of the podcast. So let me take a minute here to talk about our official sponsor, Body Spec. If you're unfamiliar with Body Spec, you haven't listened to the show in a while, you're hopping in new here. They approached us a couple of weeks ago, and what Body Spec does is they provide what's called a DEXA scan. It's a full body composition scan to help you understand what's going on with your body. Whether you're a actual athlete or a parent, stay-at-home parent, or you're a desk job like a person like Josh or I, or you're just really thinking about getting back into shape, getting a DEXA scan is a great way to learn more about where you are physically. If you'll head to the show notes and click the Body Spec link, you can see what I'm talking about. Right now, we're offering a special promo code. If you use this code PODMAVS45 in all caps at checkout, you can get $15 off a single scan. It's a great idea for a gift. And it's a really great way to potentially kickstart your New Year's resolution. Body Spec's competitors charge as much as $150 for a scan like this, so you'll be getting a real usable information for a great price. Again, visit the bodyspec.com link in the show notes and use code PODMAVS45 at checkout. Josh, I've berated him finally, and really it's just tough with the holidays. He's going to get his scan later this week, and then we're going to be able to talk to you a little more about it, because I'm interested to see what he thinks of the experience as a extra tall man. They specifically told me that you're tall enough that the scan will cut off your feet. You're too tall for it, which makes me fun. Appear now, appear later asks, is there a link for Body Spec on the YouTube or Mavs Moneyball? It is in the YouTube notes. If you check like the description of the podcast, it is in there. So that's a good question. Okay, so I'm going to cut to break, and we'll insert some ads, and then Josh and I will be right back. All right, thanks so much for the business stuff. If you guys will also consider subscribing to the show here on YouTube. If you're listening to the show, give us a subscription. We're just over 3,400 followers here on YouTube, which is nice for Josh and I, though. I was laughing with Mavs Digest the other day. He was complaining about how he was hemorrhaging followers, and I was like, you have 15,000. That's 5 times as many as ours. Leave comments on the shows, all those sorts of things. It's great. Just really enjoy the specific community that we have here. Prince Singh asks a Body Spec question. They do not take insurance, but it is cheaper than insurance. Like, I'll just put that's what it is with the code. Anyway, I'm not supposed to say what the number is. Let me see here. What should we talk about next?
I think the rebounding was really bad. We didn't talk about
that. And the rebounding has been bad all year. I need these guys, like watching Lively like do the I'm a tall guy thing with Walker Kessler behind him.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Jazz had 30 second chance points. 30.
Of their 94.
Yes. 19 offensive rebounds. To be fair, they had a lot of opportunities, to be fair. They missed 30 3-pointers. That's a lot of long rebounds, so I get it, but there were a lot of rebounds that were like the Mavericks kind of like looking like they're going at 60% speed to the corner to chase down a long rebound, and then a Jazz player just running faster than them and getting the ball. Like there are a lot of those, I felt like, tonight. So kind of bled into like when I was watching, just kind of like the process and effort level just didn't seem like it needed to be there where it needed to be against a team that, it's a missed opportunity, like they were up 40-22 after the first quarter. And then you look and Kyrie ends up still playing 36 minutes. Like this should have been and you play tomorrow. Like this should have been a game where your main guys don't play 30 minutes, and their effort just wasn't good enough in the second quarter. Like second quarter to really allow that to happen. Because even with they played how they played in the third and the fourth, like if they just played a normal second quarter, they probably have like an 18-point lead and they're kind of cruising from there. So yeah, that was rebounding was definitely part of it. That was probably the thing we haven't talked about. Yeah, that was probably the most frustrating watching it. But yeah, it was a weird game.
I will say that it's, when you lose a guy, a connecting piece that's been so key during these, this stretch without Luka, Najee Marshall only playing 13 minutes, that really grimed up. Didn't mean to do that with Quentin Grimes. Just really mucked up the offense where there wasn't near as much flow outside of Spencer Dinwiddie, who we'll talk about in a second. It was essentially Kyrie and Spencer handling the ball. Everybody else, it was not, it's just not good enough. I mean, Grimes is not a playmaker. 0 assists in 29 minutes. Jaden Hardy he's just such a pork. I don't know. I don't want to bag on him. He just had a bad 16.
You're doing really good. I'm really
it's like it's sad, man. He's shooting under 30. He's shooting like 36% from the floor. He's shooting something. Yeah, he's shooting 26% from 3 on the season. He has
twos.
He's shooting in like it's not good is the answer. It's like maybe above 40, but barely.
He's at about entering tonight. He was at 46% on 2, so it probably went down again.
Yeah,
so
he's it's 1 of 4 tonight on 2s. And he had 3 turnovers. He has more turnovers than he has assists, which I go to say it's like he's not. He can make the right pass, but it's got to be like his decision tree has to be 2 things. It can't be multi-tiered because he just can't do it. That's okay. So it's and that basically left Spencer Dinwiddie and Kyrie as the only people able to make passes. Yeah. I guess there was some lively action, some Gafford action in there with the dribble handoffs. But again, this is not read and react type stuff. This is you are to make this decision with the basketball with some of the dribble handoff things that they do. Let's just talk about Spencer real quick. So he's just playing really, really well. Like he was 2 of 9 from the floor shooting, but I mean, some of the assist work that he had tonight, he had so he led the team in assists with 10, and he had one towards the run that really put the Jazz away. That was an on the dribble left-handed bounce that had a particular bit of English on it, to where it got to only the streaking or cutting Kyrie, who then shoots this crazy reverse layup for a basket. Like I'm watching that thing going, holy shit. And it's just those two's chemistry is pretty fun. I like seeing them play together.
Yeah, it's all part of the master plan, Kirk. Jason Kidd's master plan. That's why Dinwiddie played 45 minutes to close out that overtime loss to Miami, because that's the only way you build confidence in a player, right? That's it. I'm trolling a little bit, but it is funny how since that Miami game, he's been really good. He's got, oh man, what does he have?
And he was actually, the hater in me must acknowledge the fact that even in the Miami game, he had 7 assists. And
he had good moments during that Miami game.
He lost his mind in the Miami game where he must have gotten a green light in like the final, let's just say the overtime in the final 4 minutes of regulation, because up until then he was doing fine.
Yeah, he's got, I want to say he's got 30 assists and 4 turnovers in the last 4 games.
That's right. That was my math too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty good. And yeah, he definitely got some cheap assists from just passing to guys that made threes, like not necessarily like creating offense, just kind of swinging the ball around. But yeah, like you said, like he had that great play to Kyrie, cutting later in the game to score that layup in transition, or I think it was in transition. Yeah. He's a big guy too. Like he's 6'5", which helps.
He's playing good defense too, which is a weird thing to say because he's trying. Yeah.
He could be. I mean, he was a key contributor to that Western Conference Finals run. Like we've seen him be a really good player in the right specific role, and I think they're trying to tune that and fine tune it a little bit. I think they're getting there. I don't think they want him to be a 30-minute per game.
No, but it's
player,
nice to have
but yeah,
it's just nice to. We talk about ball handling an awful lot, and at this level, I think confidence off the dribble, off the move is what separates different tiers of players. To use PJ Washington as a bit of an example, one of the criticisms we have had of PJ in the playoff run last year after the Oklahoma City game series is it felt like he was terrified to dribble, and he made some baffling choices during the Celtics series, which were really crushing. And I felt that this season, his ball handling, or at least his confidence in his ball handling, is way up. And that is fascinating to me. So when you take out, you got Luka out, you got Najee out, that leaves Kyrie
and no Clay,
and no Clay, who is also a pretty good ball handler. The Mavericks, just like in hindsight, thinking back about this, like the game really started to go to shit when when Najee wasn't going to come back in. Because he played most of the first quarter, I think, maybe a little bit of the second quarter, and then he was done. And so it's like if you only have 2 ball handlers, we watched this with the Mavericks for years. I just right. think it's too much of a struggle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it goes to show the depth of the team.
Yeah,
when no Luka, no Kyrie, no Luka, no Clay. Najee only plays 13 minutes. Like Exum's out. Like if you think about last year's Mavericks, if they had, like if Luka was out, Exum was out. I don't know. I don't even know how to if you describe, but like if you're the Mavericks able to withstand this many injuries to their playmakers, because it seems like all of their injuries right now are to playmakers and scorers.
That's right.
They would never be able to withstand that a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Nope.
I mean, they couldn't withstand Luka being out as most recently as last season, and now they're managing it. So it goes to show you how much better the roster is. So yeah, that makes sense.
I think the only other thing that's really worth talking about is like the 29 minutes of disaster Maxi. And
he had a couple. Yeah, he had a couple of good defensive plays in the.
He still makes good rotations.
Yeah, but the offense stuff is it's bleak. It is so bleak. I mean, he doesn't want to touch. Like it's getting to the point where he doesn't want to touch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw I can't remember what quarter it was, but there was a sequence where he got past the ball, I think 3 times in a row, relatively open, and literally didn't look at the rim and passed it as soon as he touched it every single time. And Kyrie passed it back to him almost like, dude, you're open. And he drove, and then I think had a turnover or something.
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 turnovers where one in the first One was a dribble drive left where he did a jump pass trying to throw to it was either Lively or Gafford. I don't remember who. And it was like one of those, no, don't, what are you doing? And then later on in the first half, he had a turnover where he gets the ball ahead of him on the fast break. And two of the Utah Whites flooded at him. I don't remember which two because Filipowski wasn't in the game. So it had to be like Eubanks
or Laurie and Kessler.
Yeah, either Eubanks, Kessler, or Laurie. So it's like two of those three flew at him. And instead of just shooting the ball, because again, they were coming from the paint, he tries to throw a pass over the top and he just throws it at one of the Utah players. And then later on, there's a jump ball where he lets the ball go out of bounds instead of just grabbing it.
Yeah, I must have thought the Jazz hit it last. And that's, those
are
frustrating plays.
This is the Maxi we actually know. Like there's the Mavs broadcast, I think still really values Maxi. Like we've seen it. Jessica and Wade had that pregame rant a couple years ago that made Mavs fans upset. And the reality is Maxi's a guy who can come on for 10 to 12 games. Which 10 to 12 games are you going to get? Will it be at a time when you really need him? That's kind of got to be the hope. I think fans sort of are tired of him and seeing him in a Mavs uniform, but at his price, I think he's probably the only actual trade piece the Mavericks have. So there's value in playing him if they actually think they need to move someone. But he does have a role for 15 minutes a game. Like I really think he has it. It's when he's asked to play too much because of circumstances that you just see diminishing returns.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure why. Well, yeah, because he played 29 minutes because Najee was out. So he was overextended, I think, more than you would want to play him because, no Najee and they couldn't really go small. No Clay who can play like some small ball, 3 or 4, which, he did last year with Golden State and a little bit with the Mavericks. So yeah, if they're fully healthy, he's probably closer to 18-ish minutes a game. And he could still be valuable in those 18 minutes being that weak side shot blocker, switcher, rotator, just it's easier to just bottle in his defensive contributions in the smaller minutes than when he plays more, like the offense just gets exposed more and more. And yeah, he played 29 minutes. He shot once and no threes. Like I just, it's not like teams are like hugging him, you know what I mean? So like to get 0 3-point attempts in 29 minutes is like, we might be like past the point of no return here with what, his inability to look at the rim. And Mavericks are going to have to maybe like scheme around this version of Maxi because it's, the benefit of him was like he can be your small ball stretch 5. Well, you can't be a stretch 5 if you're not stretching. And he's not making shots when he shoots and he's not shooting.
Teams don't care. Teams don't care that he's out there on offense. And that has challenges.
Right.
Ultimately, it doesn't really matter.
No, because when everyone's fully healthy, he doesn't have to play that.
And I like trying to think how to phrase this. Like, sort of understanding how I believe I have a good grasp about what the Mavericks feel about Maxi, and so because of that, I don't feel like wasting my rage getting mad about something that's not going to change. And so I'd rather just sort of hope for the best for him in that regard. I guess this hasn't been near as like grumpy a podcast as we thought. Another great PJ game. We didn't talk about him very much at all.
Talked about that third quarter. Yeah, he was really good for what they needed him to do. They're 12-8 now, by the way. I think they're in sole possession of 5th. Yes, they are. They are with it. I think they were 11th or 12th when they were 5-7. So they have shot past more than a handful of teams right now. So they've kind of righted the ship. And you look at the standing, you look at some of the teams below them.
Yep.
Obviously, like Denver and Phoenix, you just wonder when they're going to get their shit together. And then you look above them and you see like Golden State, who is sliding without Melton, who's now out for the year.
Yeah, that's Memphis, a big loss for them.
Yeah, they haven't been the same since he's been hurt. And Memphis, who can run hot cold because they can't seem to stay healthy for more than a week at a time.
Who all did they have on the injury report?
I think they're getting some guys back. Like I think they had Ja, Bain, and Jefferson.
Yeah.
last game for the first time in a while. Not Jefferson, Jackson. So they're getting healthier, but you never know. You never know when they're going to hit an injury. That they haven't proven to be a consistent beacon of health over there. And then another team ahead of them is Houston, and I think that team is fucking awesome, and I love that team. I love that roster. I totally believe they could keep winning, but eventually, you wonder if they're just playing above their skis.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll dip back down, and then the only teams beneath them, Denver and Phoenix, you're wondering when they're going to get their S together. But then Lakers, who are just kind of a whatever team, like the Clippers, who are playing kind of out of their minds, like the Spurs, like the only team below the Mavericks that I'm like could really, besides Phoenix and Denver, that could really like make a run. You would think is Minnesota, but they're a mess.
Which I don't think so. I think they're fraudulent.
So, like you said, I think there is a good chance for them to make some more headway.
We got enough. This is the thing that matters to me. Point differential is something that's a bit like it is the line of demarcation between good and bad teams. Okay.
Yep.
And the Mavericks are, if you go to ESPN.com and you look at point differential in the Western Conference, the Mavericks are 5th in the West with the
fourth point differential by a hair.
Differential. Yeah. But it's that's like the difference between like 2 points in a game. It doesn't really matter. But then after that, it falls off. The Mavericks are a plus 6.5. Denver is plus 2. Clippers are plus 2.2. Everybody else is either negative or less than 2 points a game. And like that says something to me about team quality. Like we have roughly 20 games under the hood now. So that's just enough data to start making some points here. And I think the Mavericks are going to be in this place where by Christmas, if they're like 6 or so, they're 4 games over 500 now. I think the goal for the rest of the month, is to really be 7 or 8 games over 500 heading into the new year, because it's going to get harder. And I don't know. I set these sort of goals for me that ultimately don't really matter, but I want to see the Mavericks in a better place where they've been in years past.
They set that goal. Don't just say that. They talked all preseason that they wanted to be off to a better start. They want to have a better regular season. They didn't want to have a huge second half to make up a bunch of ground. Like that's not just you. They said that. They set that goal for themselves. So I think we're allowed to hold them to the goal that they set for themselves. And right now they're doing it. It might not be, it's kind of in a weird roundabout way, because they lost 4 in a row, and it was technically, they lost like 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
They started 5-7. So that's not the best way to get to 12-8 by starting 5-7, but they're kind of where they needed to be. Like if you told me before the season that they'd be 12-8 on November 30th, I'd probably be like, that's probably a little less than I expected, but not
one game.
They're not that far off. Yeah. So they're right about where they need to be. And like you said, I mean, their next game, Portland, Memphis, Washington, Toronto, Clippers twice, Portland. Like that should be maybe 1 or 2 losses tops in that.
And you go back and you look, and some of the losses that they've had have obviously been insane. The only loss I think that I'm just going to go look, because I could be talking out of my ass here.
They've only got one really double-digit loss, which was that Phoenix game. But every other loss has been single digits. I don't know.
Yeah, and there were like there were issues in the end of the Golden State game, which pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
the Utah game was
the same.
terrible.
I don't know, that 4-game stretch just had some really terrible execution.
Yep.
The Utah loss was bad, and the Miami loss was heinous. Because those were like, you guys lost the game.
Yeah, the other team did not win. Yeah,
and that is what it is. So realistically, we should be happier than maybe our tone indicates. So they played a lot of games in November too. Robbie Lewis says that the Mavericks were 8-6 in November last year.
14 game. Yeah.
12-8 right now. That's for the year, but this is
they started well last year, because that's when Grant Williams played his only good games, was like the first 15 games of the season, and they played well.
More games. I mean, you kind of look, if you look through, if you're looking through like the how many games teams have played, like the Mavericks have played more than some of these guys they're up against, where it's Okay, there's 20 for them. For the Grizzlies, 19. I was looking at the Nuggets only played 17 games so far. Like, that's weird to me. Everybody else, most teams have played 19 to 20 games at this point.
Yeah.
Eastern Conference, just disaster. My goodness.
It's a tire fire over there.
Well, so there's probably one more thing we should talk about. We somehow managed to talk 35 minutes about this whole thing. Do you think Luka plays tomorrow? I think he does.
I don't know, because technically the reevaluation was supposed to happen. I don't know, like tomorrow, Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember what they said. 1 week, but I guess if he's on the road, I don't know why he would be on the road trip if he wasn't going to play. Like, especially because they come home. Don't they come home right after this Portland game? Yeah, they play Memphis Tuesday at home. So
they need that one insofar if they give a shit about the cup. So
yeah, I would bet on him playing. He was doubtful entering this game, which was upgraded because he was out for most of the game. So the Mavs broadcast said he was warming up today and looked normal, looked like Luka. So
I think it's the decision just to not. And we still don't really know what his injury was. They changed it from strain to sprain, which are different designations. Like a sprained forearm and I don't fucking know.
Can you strain a wrist?
Yeah, he did it in the first quarter of the New Orleans game, and I still can't. I think they must have wanted him to get something right. The NBA is so funky. Like, they do injury report stuff is so funky. So okay, well, and see, Mr. Ali asks, "Do you think Luka plays and Kyrie rests?" No, I think they need Kyrie, and I think because you just don't want to go back to letting Luka play Luka ball. You want to get 25 minutes in for Luka, 25 minutes in for Kyrie, and then hopefully they can set the rest of the game. But again, like there's somebody kind of trolling in the chat, but Portland is not a pushover. Like, they have 4 centers that are functional, and the King Klingon, who's been outstanding this year, Duop Reith, who is like a walking. He just kind of gives me vibes of, like, he's still learning to play basketball, and I just think he's a little. He gives me vibes of somebody that is too physical to play basketball. Then there's DeAndre Ayton, and then there's Robert Williams. So it's like, I don't know. They're feisty. Is what I'll say. I was reading my guy. Let's hear from what my guy Sean Hyken says about injuries. He tweeted some stuff earlier today. This is just worth taking a look at. Also, I know who is getting the athletic job for the Mavericks, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's a guy named Christian Clark who's been with New Orleans. He's an actual good reporter, so it's a good thing here. Let's see here. Jeremy Grant, Scoot Henderson, and Robert Williams were out against Sacramento. So who is going to play tomorrow? Blazers say Grant has been updated to questionable with a knee sprain. Scoot Henderson is also questionable, and Robert Williams will be out. So we'll have to see.
All right.
We'll have to see. Okay, everybody, you guys be good. We will talk tomorrow night. Thanks so much for hanging out. I'm not going to do a Mavs party. There's nothing to talk about, and we're tired. Everybody be good, and see you Sunday night. Go Mavs.